Hello, hello, hello. Good morning. I guess midday here in Utah. It is noon. So I'm going to just turn this up really quick, make sure all my settings are good. So, welcome to day number 3 of the Make More Dough webinar series by moi, Pete Tidwell, the Mighty Baker. I am so excited to be here with you today. If you were here yesterday, you are in for an even bigger treat today. So, I'm very passionate about marketing, and hopefully that came through yesterday. A lot of knowledge and a lot of experience there. Now, when we get into pricing, that's a huge thing for me. I love pricing. So, and I know this is an area that a lot of people have challenges with. So, we're going to jump right into this today. I'm going to open up my presentation here, and then we're going to get moving here. So, let me just open this up and get us all queued up and ready to go. And I hope all of you are having an amazing day. Here in Utah, we have a beautiful sunshiny day today. So it is beautiful. I was outside a few minutes ago, listening to some music and just kind of getting into the zone coming in here. So anytime I do these, I always put on some music and listen. And that song I played this morning is one of my favorite songs I listen to kind of pump me up and kind of get me into the right state where I can be creative and express myself and be able to have clarity of thought. There's a lot of things that I've learned over the years of when you get into those places where you're a little overwhelmed and things that you can be able to switch your state easily by, and this is from my business coach. I have a business coach named Dave Moreno, and he's incredible. And he talks a lot about state work and getting yourself into flow. And that's an area that I have a lot of passion about as well. And I help my clients with that all the time. So welcome back to Make More Dough today. So before we get into today's topic, I want to just ask you a couple questions. What is standing in your way of growing your business to the next level? Just a question to ask. What is it that's standing in your way? Maybe write a few things down. What comes to mind? What is your very next action that you will take towards your business goals, right? The very first day we talked about taking action and having courage to believe in ourselves and being kind to ourselves and cultivating good energy so that we can show up in our businesses. And it's always the best strategy to focus on the next action, not set of actions, but what's the next thing you're going to do? The next thing you're going to do, and then move from there. Whatever happens, right? You reevaluate at every step. And sometimes it feels like 3 steps forward and 2 steps back, but that's okay. That means you're doing it right, right? If you're going and you're having success sometimes, and sometimes things are not going well, and you're learning and growing, like that is the journey. That is how it is all the time. It never really gets easy per se. It gets more manageable because we have processes and those types of things to help it to be more manageable on a daily basis, but it doesn't ever necessarily get easy, especially from like an emotion standpoint, right? Our everything comes up from mindset, like we've talked about before. I've talked about this a couple times. If as we're going through this, the topics of this webinar is what I coach my clients on. So if you are in your business and you want to know what it looks like to work with me, Pete, as your coach, go book a discovery call. In that discovery call, we can talk specifically about your business and your goals and the things that you want to accomplish and what coaching with me even looks like and if we're a good fit for each other, right? I don't just work with anybody, right? When I meet with people, I want to make sure that you're in the right spot. I never want to push my coaching onto somebody that's not necessarily ready or ready to do that in their business. You might not be ready yet. You might not be ready for a year, might not be ready for 6 months, or you might be ready to jump in right now. So if you're ready to jump in right now, go in there. I have some spots in my coaching that I'm trying to fill up. So I've got a couple clients right now and I'm trying to fill in some spots. So if you're interested, I would jump on the opportunity because once those spots are filled, I won't be taking on a ton of one-on-one clients, because I want to be there for each of my clients and make sure that I am providing the value and helping you grow your business the way that you want to. Quick review of day one. We talked all about mindset. We talked about the thoughts that drive your results. We talked about that. And here's a collection of thoughts that I wrote down just as a reminder to you to have that keep in the top of your mind. What are the mindset? What is your dream team of thoughts of your mindset of that are going to help drive you to take action and drive you to have success in your business? Now, yesterday, we talked all about marketing and the marketing mix and how to build a brand, how to start building out these pieces. We specifically talked about product, price, promotion, and place. But these are the 9 P's of marketing that really encapsulate everything that a business is, right? And this is what you're communicating out into the market to people. And we went over that yesterday. So, okay, first off, before we jump into this, I know pricing, like maybe in the chat, any of you feel similar to this lady when you talk about pricing? I sure did. And sometimes I still do, right? Because it's always a learning thing and you kind of always have to adjust and change, especially with inflation and market changes, economics, like all the things, right? And pricing is kind of one of those things that's just like a headache. And sometimes when you're trying to figure it out, you're just like, it's too much. There's too many things to deal with here. So before I jump into this, I want to note that we will not have as much time in the Q&A today. And reason being is because this topic is quite a juicy one, and there are a lot of details that we're going to be going through here. So take some notes as we go through, especially if you have any questions as we go through. Make sure that you write them down and that you're ready to submit those either today for our last 10, 15 minutes for Q&A, or save your question for day 5. Day 5 is going to be a whole hour of just Q&A. So if you have any unanswered questions or anything you'd like to ask that didn't get answered today, make sure you submit that so that you can get it answered on Friday, because that's going to be the best for you. So pricing. So we're going to jump into this. This is a fun one, you guys. I know it makes sound kind of funny that it's fun, but I really, really, really love pricing. I'm just going to grab my phone to make sure that I keep track of time here, because I want to make sure we have some time for Q&A at the very end. I just want to make sure I have my clock here. Okay. So when we get into pricing, any of you said some of these things before? I know these are the things that I've said to myself over the years, right? And there's a ton of these, right? Will people even pay more? I feel bad charging more. Most of my clients are my friends and family. I'm scared to raise my prices. I'm still learning, so I feel bad charging at all. I made better money as a teenager. This is a funny one because we'll get into this, but it's funny. This is something that I said to myself years ago because I was breaking down some of my pricing in the very beginning days of doing my cakes, and I was breaking everything down, and I was like, wait a minute, I just did this cake and I figured out all the calculations and I just paid myself like $4 an hour for my labor. I'm like, that's like less than I made when I was a teenager, way, way less. So we're going to get into that today of like how to know how much to pay yourself and how to kind of go down that path. We're going to break down some stigmas, I hope, and anything that comes up for you guys as we go through. Let's chat about them, especially in the Q&A. And we'll get to that. So number one, before we jump into any strategies or those kind of things, I want you to think to yourself, do you have a fixed mindset or a growth mindset, right? The difference between those is fixed. You're just like, okay, I'm good where I'm at. I'm scared to grow. I'm scared to do these hard things in my business. A growth mindset is, hey, we're going to do what it takes to grow this, even though it gets uncomfortable, because the path to growth is very uncomfortable sometimes, right? It is. Like, as we do things that are uncomfortable for us, it is a discomfort. But what comes after discomfort? What comes after failure? What comes after setbacks? Growth. That's what comes out. They come learnings, right? So what money mindset? We talked about this a little bit yesterday. What is your money mindset? Do you feel like you deserve money? Do you feel like, what are your views on money? I know money mindset's a huge one, and I'm not going to go a ton into this today, but just look at it. Do you look at money more from a scarcity standpoint or more from an abundance standpoint, right? I go in and out of that sometimes all in the same day, right? But I have reminders for myself to put myself back in that place. So the overall theme today of today's, because there's so much material and I can't go into as much detail as there really is from a pricing strategy standpoint. But today, my goal is to help you stop guessing and start pricing your products based on actual data, right? Your data, not guessing, not looking out in the market and seeing like, well, so and so does this and so does this, and maybe I should do this. That is a part of it, and we'll get into that. You do need to do some competitive research, and of course, if you're priced way higher than everybody, nobody's going to come buy for you. So there is some strategy behind that. But before you start just naming prices and just sticking them up on your website, make sure you know your numbers, because every one of your numbers is going to be completely different. So at the basis of all pricing is math. Pricing is math. When you get into pricing for any business in any industry in the whole world, a for-profit business, there are calculations, there are formulas, there are things that people like in business school, all those kind of things that teach you exactly what those numbers should look like. And then we as humans decide to completely just mess that up and confuse it by bringing in our drama and bringing in some of those statements I talked about before of like, well, I can't raise my prices because people aren't going to buy anything from me or whatever. But we need to fix this, because if you want, and this is a point I'll make in a sec, but if you want to grow your business, then you need to understand these numbers so that you can know how you're going to achieve your goals. How are you going to grow? Because if you're not pricing properly, then you're leaving money on the table and you're not going to grow your business. So we're going to go through this here. So this is a very simplified, but straightforward. I want to put this across to make sure you can see in one picture. This is kind of mighty simple pricing, right? First off, you have ingredients, supplies, and overhead. We'll break all these down, okay? Ingredients, supplies, and overhead, plus your cost of time, which is your labor costs, whether this is you or an employee, and that equals your cost of goods sold, your cost to make the cake, your cost to make the batch of cookies, your cost to make whatever you're making in your business. Then you take your cost of goods sold, so your expenses, plus a percentage of profit, and then that right there is your retail price to your customer, okay? I'm trying to make this as simple as possible. Of course, like when you start implementing this in your business, it's going to take a lot of work on the back end from an Excel standpoint. I'll be releasing some Excel spreadsheets and those kind of things in the future. I don't have those quite ready yet, but that's something that I can help you from a coaching standpoint as well, to look over those kind of pricing things in your business. But it's as simple as this. And I promise, even though it seems overwhelming, it's worth the time to take to know if you're actually making money in your business. So here's the first diagram. And this I just wanted to cover really quick, okay? So this shows the exact same formula in the top to show your retail price to customer. A lot of people ask me the question of like, well, what about per servings? A lot of wedding cake pricing, a lot of dessert pricing, those kind of things are all per serving. And that's what my clients want. Okay, that's fine. But don't just go on the internet and say, how much should I charge per slice? Or don't even ask the group that you're in of like, oh, it should be this much per slice. No, I wouldn't do that at all. You'd need to know some of those things when we get to our competitive piece in a few minutes. But right now, you need to know your numbers. And then if you find it easier to communicate with your clients of a per serving, then what you do your first calculation, then you take your retail price to customer And then, oh, sorry, this is supposed to be a divide symbol. I'll change that in the future, but retail price to customer divided by the number of servings would be the price per serving. So I'll change that to the divide there. But I just wanted to put that out there that some people just are like blanket statement like, oh, wedding cakes are $8 per slice or $4 per slice or $10 per slice. There's so many factors that go into it. You can't just say that because you could be leaving money on the table in your market based on just making guesses like that, right? So when you get into ingredients and supplies and overhead, this is our first piece. So when you get into expenses, you have variable costs and fixed costs. So your variable costs are going to be things like your ingredients and supplies, things that you go through that you use in your business. So all your ingredients, all of your supplies, your cake boards, dowels, boxes, dish soap, towels, cleaners, all the things, right? Everything that you need in order to produce said cake. Overhead, those are mostly fixed costs, okay? So most of these like utilities, electricity, gas, internet, equipment. Some equipment though, this gets in a little bit more from a accounting standpoint. You're going to have to, once you grow a little bit bigger and those kind of things, you're going to need to get the value of your equipment and depreciate it and all those kind of things. But that's work for accountants. So make sure that's another piece of advice too. When you get into finance and you get into like growing your business, the first couple of years, you may have to do your own taxes, figure these things out. But once you can afford it, and you're actually wanting to grow your business, a CPA and an accountant is the most valuable thing because it will save you a lot of time and help you understand what the financial situation is of your business. But you need to understand these numbers before you can even like offer what you're doing in your business. You need to understand your costs. So how do you break down the expenses? So when you get into ingredients, I would suggest breaking your ingredients into per ounce, per gram, or per item, right? Per item is going to be like your eggs, right? Like a single item. But everything else, and what makes really nice with a per ounce is most stores and online, you can go onto Walmart.com or Sam's Club or whatever place and get what your per ounce price is depending on where you're shopping. And as well with other vendors as well, you can break those costs down so that you know then when you break down your individual recipes, you then have your per ounce, per gram, per item for each of those ingredients going in there, right? And then you can break that down to know how much your cost of goods is for a particular product. That's where it gets a little bit more into the weeds and growing this whole thing. But from a very basic standpoint, ingredients, break those down into those units. Supplies, break those down into per ounce, like for instance, for your cleaners, those kind of things, or per item. And then overhead, your per month type things. This gets a little tricky. So like, for instance, this is a good example for like a wedding cake, for instance, or a birthday cake. Maybe for overhead, you would take your overall overhead and break that down of like what your sales goals, what did your sales look like last time? And maybe you add like an extra $5 on each wedding cake or an extra $10 on each wedding cake to just cover some of those overhead costs. Some of that is a guessing game because sometimes you're not going to know your sales, but always incorporate those kind of things in there. So so that covers your ingredients, supplies, and overhead. So really, when it gets to this, track it all. Track everything. Everything that you spend out of your pocket, out of your business account, make sure you're tracking all those expenses so you know exactly what it costs to operate this portion of your business. So next is going to be cost of time. So your labor costs. Track your valuable time. Like you've got to track this. Track and break down your time. I had a conversation the other day with a client and we were talking about just, okay, like I don't know how long it takes me to do this. And am I pricing okay? Those kind of things. So my suggestion to him and to some of my other clients is track and break down your time. So next time you make a wedding cake, next time you make cookies, next time you do any process in your business, any process, you list each task and then how long to complete each of those tasks. Do it on a few cakes. because it's the data that's going to give us the information that we need in order to price properly in the end. Because let's say we leave out some of these things and you're spending, a whole couple hours or hour and a half on cake planning and design, and then you decide not to include that, then that's going to eat into how much you're paying yourself per hour. Okay. And of course, like the question sometimes comes up, well, I'm new and it takes me a little bit longer to do everything. That's okay. That's just fine. You are charging for your time. And later we'll talk about some of those costs and how you can kind of adjust that a little bit. But make sure you account for all the time, like even cleaning and washing dishes, pictures, social media, mixing, baking, cooling. And some people have the question with mixing, baking, and cooling, like, oh, do I even count those? Because like while it's baking or cooling, I'm not doing anything. But really think about it and look at it. Look and see what you do. Maybe you take the cakes out of the oven and you go eat lunch. Great. But for me, I'll usually wash my dishes while I am letting it cool or whatever. So there's a little bit of crossover time there as well. So you're going to have to see what this looks like for you. Now, this is a touchy one, right? A lot of people have this question, and I hope to shed a little bit of light on here and a little bit of just permission for you to decide what you want to pay yourself per hour. So there's the question. How much do I pay myself per hour? What is the time worth? This is for you to decide, right? You look at like the federal minimum wage, 7.25 an hour. I think in Utah, where I'm at, 7.75 an hour. Some states are 15 an hour. And for instance, like a grocery store cake decorator, usually on average, would be $13 to $15 an hour. Maybe you'd get up to like 18 or 19 possibly. But the suggested wage range that I would suggest for you to look into is $15 to $50 an hour or more, depending on skill and experience, right? And it's as those things improve. And I know this gets a little bit tricky because there's a lot of thoughts that come up like, well, am I really worth that much per hour? Those kind of things. Just look at these and look at some of the jobs that are out there. So the cost of your time, so the time that you're spending doing this, decorating, running your business, what else could you be doing during that time to make money, right? So that's the amount of money or more, I think, because you're all artists out there and business owners. You're all artists. Remember that, you guys. We're not just a grocery store providing stuff, right? All of us are artists and business owners, and we're trying to provide the art of baking and the art of the decorating to people to improve and bring happiness to their lives. You guys are all in the happiness business. If people ever ask you what business you're in, you could say cake business, but you could really say I'm in the happiness business because I make people happy. I provide products that provide happiness. And how can you put a price on happiness? It's a little bit hard, but people value that kind of stuff, right? So make sure you're paying yourself and respecting yourself and not paying yourself less than what you deserve. And I will say this, I guarantee that all of you should probably be paying yourself more per hour. Guaranteed. Like you got to look into these numbers because you don't want to be running a business and then getting to the end of the day and adding everything up or years into it. Because as an example, once you like open up a storefront business, your time's gone, right? Like it's just sucked up. So you need to understand and know what this looks like before you get in too deep and you're like, oh no, what do I do? Okay. Next one is profit. So, okay, number one, we'll answer kind of, I guess, let's go one slide forward. What is profit? Profit is the money that you have left over after paying for business expenses. Okay. So as the business owner, if you're doing work, right, you get paid for your labor. Like we talked about, make sure you're paying yourself labor, but profit is what allows you to grow your business and do the things that you actually want to do in your life. You're not a nonprofit organization. If any of you are familiar with nonprofit organizations, they pay their employees, but they don't charge profit. So You could operate your business if that way if you want to, but if you're trying to make a living or trying to make extra money, don't cheat yourself. Because if you're just like, oh, well, I pay myself $20 an hour, I don't need to charge profit. Well, you can choose to do that if you want to, but in the long run, that's not going to help you achieve your goals and dreams. Because what's going to help you achieve your goals and dreams and the things you actually want to build in your life and business is by charging profit on your goods, because that's going to help you purchase equipment, expand operations, marketing, upgrade tools, build a bakery, upgrade website, Facebook, paid ads, or whatever marketing you're doing, improve your skills, rainy day fund, pandemic, market crash, recession, inflation, whatever, right? Just to help you with some of those cash flow times too. You've got to charge profit. That's what business is. Business is the charge of profit to make money that is more than what our expenses are. If you are operating in a nonprofit standpoint, then you're not growing and you're not making money. So that's just something to make sure to keep in mind. This is the part I have watched numerous videos, tutorials, TikTok videos, Instagram, like I can't even name all of them, but I've seen so many videos about cake pricing and those kind of things. And the amount of them that never mention profit is absolutely insane. And it's because we're scared. We're scared to charge what we're worth. We're scared to take ourselves seriously and put a price tag on something that we have spent years and hours in hard work learning the skills and experience. People at home can't just bake a cake or make cookies like you guys can, right? They can't. Like they can go buy the ingredients, but they can't do it. They're paying you for your experience, not just because you can make a cake. Like, or not that they're just not buying a cake. Like they're paying for your experience as an individual. So we're not going to go into huge detail here because this gets in kind of some of the weeds, but I want to just put across that, and I don't want to confuse anybody here, but I think it's important just to understand the difference between markup percentage versus gross margin. So when you get into profit, how much to add, right? And these are the percentages. This might be confusing in a completely different language for some people. I know it was when I first looked at it. This is very more finance kind of side, but it's important to remember this. But let me show you what this looks like in real life, okay? So let's say you're calculating profit for a cake, and your ingredients and supplies and overhead cost you $100. Your cost of your time for labor, $200. So your cost of cake is $300, which is your cost of goods. And then you are taking that plus your profit, which is then a to the retail price of your customer. So profit difference, and here's two different slides. So this is $150 markup, and this is a $100 markup. In the $100 markup, there's a 33% markup percentage and a 25% margin. And these are the differences between the actual cost and the selling price, right? And there are different ways to calculate these. But it's more important to understand that if you look at this piece, right? Let's say you look at this piece, look at this calculation, and you see this $450 for the customer. And let's say you decide not to charge profit on the cake, okay? So then you're bringing in $300 from the customer, and guess how much money you really have? How much money did you make? A big fat zero, because the cost of your time, and also this is another important piece. You may be saying, but I'm the only employee. I'm the only person that works. So why does that make so much of a difference? Look at this cost of time, okay? What happens when you hire employees and all of the labor costs are paid to your employee and not to you? Okay, interesting to look at, because if you do that, then you get paid $300 from your customer and you make zero money because you paid everything for your expenses. You paid your employees the $200, and then you're stuck with a big fat zero as a business and you're not growing. So that's the importance of profit in your business, because as you grow and hire employees, you're going to have to spend labor costs, and those labor costs go away. And guess who's paid last in your business? You. So if you're not charging profit, then most likely you're not going to have very much money in your business. I hope that makes sense. I just really wanted to go over that, of realizing the importance of charging profit in your business, right? So I put this on here of like math again. Like I hate math. But then I put, psst, this kind of math actually puts money in your pocket. Secret, right? Wait, what are your business growth goals? Know know all of your expenses. Know your numbers. What can your market handle? Market research, competitive research. And this gets into our next piece, because obviously you're going to figure out all these numbers, approximately what you're wanting to make, and then you choose what your final price is and what you're going to be looking at. Before you choose on that final price, now you have all your data, you have all your business data that you need to know and establish how much you need to charge in order to grow your business or accomplish your business goals, right? But before you actually choose the price, let's go to the market and see what's going on inside the market right now. What are your competitors charging, right? What are other people charging for the similar thing? What are your differentiating factors? And it gets back to the marketing. What are the characteristics or benefits or value of your specific product that you're selling, right? So this is an area you might push against a little bit, but this is some things I really wanted to touch on here, is that you should be priced too expensive for some people. It's okay for people to say no. Sometimes that's hard. But if you know your numbers and you know for sure what your minimum price and what your threshold is, then you know that if that comes below that, you can take the order, but in your mind, you know that you're not making as much on that order. It's better to know the numbers than just to guess and throw it out there and think and have the illusion that you're making money, right? Because do you really know? Do you really know? That's a question for all of you right now. Do you really know if you're making money in your business? Look at the numbers and start working through some of it. Next one is, don't undercut other local bakers. And this is a disservice to yourself and your fellow bakers. And I know this might be a hard one to swallow, and might be a hard one that might ruffle some feathers out there possibly. But I know obviously some people are going to have prices that are less. And I'm not talking about that. Like if you're new, you're not charging as much, like that's not a huge issue. What I'm talking about is putting out pricing and guessing pricing and putting it out in the market, and then like I've seen this in the market. I look at people's websites all the time. I've looked at like hundreds and hundreds of wedding cake and dessert businesses. And it's so interesting to look at, because there's some that they're charging like a third of what somebody else is charging in their exact same market. Okay. So number one, you can do that. You can totally do that. If you're trying to grow your business, you're trying to sell a discount to friends, I don't know, whatever you're choosing to do. But the problem is let's say your business grows and all your customers are your friends and family, and they're used to paying these low numbers for cakes. Once you're actually in business, they're going to be like, "Oh, why are you so expensive now?" You're like, "Oh, well, I'm actually charging. Oh, why didn't you charge before?" So, and then also this kind of messes with the overall market. I think this has been a big, huge issue in the market for a long time, because really, and maybe some people have different views on this, but my opinion is I would like the consumer to be able to make a choice based on flavors, design, artistry, like those kind of things, right? The brand, like what does this brand bring? How are they going to help your event, right? Um, Instead of making a price decision, because I don't want somebody to make a price decision on my stuff. Like, oh, I'm going to go with them because they're cheaper. You don't want people to make that choice, because then people are going to be like, oh, they're just the cheap baker. If you want something nice, go to this person. But if you just want the cheap stuff, or if you want to save some money, go down to so and so down the road, right? So this is where, and this is not just because I want, like bakers up top to be able to charge the price that they want to. But you guys that are starting out, Start out strong. Start out respecting yourself and paying yourself what you're worth, because you are worth it. You are worth every penny. Seriously, you are, and you need to be you need to be charging appropriately so that you can grow your business and your life, because none of us signed up to be stuck in the kitchen for 100 hours a week. None of us did. We want a balanced life where we can make cakes, make cookies, make whatever we make, and to be able to enjoy our life. And I believe that is super, super possible. The last one is, other bakers are not your competition. They are all fellow artists and human beings trying to build something they care about. And it's no need to be nasty to each other. I feel like sometimes, and this is what I'm really trying to help with my Facebook group that I have. If you're not a member of my Facebook group, go join it. It's the Make More Dough Facebook group. I'll send out some links for it, but go join it. It's a private group. You have to, add your name to it. I'll accept it for sure, but I'm trying to create a community in there where we can be friends as competition and help each other as competition, and that we can grow together and we can help work through issues together and those kind of things, because the industry I care about so much. And every time I see a baker out there that's not charging enough, I'm like, oh, you guys are leaving money on the table. You're leaving money on the table, and we need to help educate and help the communities that we live in to understand the value and what it actually takes to go into and do these amazing cakes. Unfortunately, the TV shows and that I've been on, and a lot of other TV shows online put across this weird, like, oh, cakes are easy to do. And I don't really love that piece of it, right? Because the consumers are like, oh, it's easy. Like it should be super cheap. Can't you just throw it together in a few hours? You're like, no, we are artists. Like, it takes time to design, it takes time to bake, it takes time to do it, all the little things that you need to do. Okay. Sorry, I'm talking really fast today, but I wanted to make sure that we cover all these things. We've got about 10 minutes, and then I'm going to do some Q&A. This is a valuable piece from a pricing standpoint that I wanted to put in here, is a friends and family discount strategy. And this is an area that I want to talk about for just a minute. So, any of you that are starting baking, like a lot of you start selling to your friends and your family and those kind of things. And you're just wanting to do that to test the market, test your things, those kind of things. But this is one just to make a choice and stick with it in your business. Choose what you're going to do. So, what is going to be your friends and family discount strategy? Is it a specified discount? Is it choosing to charge for just ingredients and supplies? Is it charging just for ingredients, supplies, labor, but then no profit? Or do you do free for family members? Or do you just straight across charge full price? I would suggest, as a suggestion, do what you want. I would suggest that you choose one of these and just stick with it. Because if you choose it and stick with it, it will get rid of a lot of future headaches in your life. I guarantee it. This is a valuable, valuable, valuable slide right here. Because if you get known as the person that just always is giving discounts or free cakes or whatever, have specific rules and make sure you stay consistent on them so people in your life know. And after I go through this one, I'm going to go through delivery. I forgot to add a slide for delivery, and I apologize, but I'll talk about it here in a minute, because you got to make sure you charge for delivery too. But we're going to talk about this first. So sponsorships. So as a baker, as a business owner, people reach out all the time and say, hey, you want to sponsor something? Hey, you want to sponsor the local soccer team? You want to sponsor the local football team? You want to sponsor such and such? Okay, what I would suggest here is don't spend any of your hard-earned money on sponsorships unless, of course, you have it. If you've got money flowing in your business and you're making good money, making good profit, and you have the money, great. There's a space for that. It's valuable marketing, but do it with a strategy behind it. Don't just give to anybody that's calling and saying, hey, I want you to sponsor. Because most of the time, just putting a sign up somewhere is not necessarily going to do it all, right? And so what I have found as a good strategy for this is an offering retail value of cake or desserts as trade for the sponsorship cost. So you're not shelling out your hard-earned cash unless you have it, of course, like I mentioned. So I hope that makes sense. So for instance, this is twofold, right? Let's say the sponsorship is $1,000 and the $1,000 gets you a logo on a t-shirt or a banner somewhere, or on somebody's website, whatever. Do it instead of paying them $1,000 cash, pay them in maybe you do half cash, half desserts, or maybe it's a $200, maybe $1,000 is a little bit much, but maybe it's $100 sponsorship for just like a small local bakery. It's $100 sponsorship. So you say, I'm going to give you $100 worth of cookies for your after season party. And then you get the sponsorship, you get the advertising, the marketing out of it, but then also, guess what? You get your product into people's mouths. Because what happens when people eat delicious treats? They want to know where they came from and they want to order more. So there's a piece for you right there. I love that little strategy. When it comes to collabs and exposure offers, this is one be careful with. I've been burned on these so many times over the last 10 years. Like so many times. I can't even name all of them. But make sure you go through these and figure out exactly what the details are, okay? First off, are they mutually beneficial? If you're just providing cake for a photo shoot or cake for something or whatever, just because that's for an influencer and there's exposure and whatever, just make sure that you know all the details. How is this benefiting you? Because any type of collab should be mutually beneficial. Has to be. Has to be. And then choose wisely or not at all, unless it's the right opportunity, right? You can turn down offers. Take the top 10% of opportunities. That's advice that I've received from a few people. Take the top 10% of opportunities and you'll be in a much better place because you can't do everything. You can't take on every last thing that comes through. Okay, so before we take on some Q&A, I'm just going to talk quickly about delivery. That was one piece, and I didn't add a slide in here. I'll make sure I add in the slide, but make sure from a pricing standpoint, I would suggest that you charge delivery separate than the cost of your cake. So you have your cost of your cake, and then you have your delivery, because your delivery has some different factors. There's also time. How long does it take to do it? How long does it take you to set up the cake? How long does it take you to put flowers on the cake? How long does it take you to do all those things? Also, how long does it take you to drive to and from the venue? How much gas does it cost to get to and from the venue? Make sure you're covering for those. That's part of what they're buying. That is part of what they're buying. So make sure you put that together in your delivery. And then from that standpoint, you can choose to either charge just that exact amount for delivery, so you're not necessarily making any money, or add $5 onto it and make a little bit of profit on top of the delivery. That's up to you as a business owner to decide what you want to do in that standpoint. So, okay. Oh, wow. Okay. 12:45 almost. We got about 17 minutes. And I love seeing the messages in here. Okay. So good morning from Monica and from Christina, Portugal. That's amazing. I'd love to go to Portugal someday. That'd be incredible. And oh, awesome. Okay. And then we've got one question here. How do you break down utilities with a home business when utilities are shared with the household? Okay. That's a really good question. What I would suggest on this is it's going to take a little bit of math and a little bit of tracking. But when it comes to your home utilities, you can look at what your cost is on a monthly basis. And then when you have it tracked of how much time you're actually spending in the kitchen using electricity, it's a little bit of a guesstimate. It's not going to be exact, but I would suggest you do that, where you can take the whole month of expense of utilities, take how long you spend in your kitchen using utilities for your business, and then be able to do the math to figure out what the value of that is. That's what I would suggest to do. There may be a clearer um, formula that you could find online for that. I would believe. I'll look into that as well. But that's how I would do it. That's how I did it when I very first began. But that's also helpful for two things, right? It's helpful for your pricing to make sure that you have that piece incorporated, but then also from a business finance standpoint, that's also a write-off cost, right? You can actually write off in your taxes, a tax deduction of the things that you spend, expenses on your business, so that at the end of the year when you're paying taxes, you don't have to pay taxes on the money that you spent on operating your business. So that's an area that it gets into a little bit more accounting and those kind of things, but that's how I would break down that. Okay, I know that was a lot of information that we just went over, and I just talked like a million miles an hour, but I really, as an overall for this whole webinar, I just want to provide value and information for you guys so that you can get moving on your business. If you want to grow your business, this is how you do it. You need to start understanding some of these things. How does your business operate behind the scenes, right? It's a huge thing. If you have any other questions, please pop them in. While I'm waiting for any to pop in, I'll just talk really quickly about two things that I had as kind of bonus things maybe to talk about. When you get into running your costs and your projections, like let's say you're building out a business plan for your business and you're seeing how much is it really going to cost? What does this actually look like? As you go into like a business plan, you're doing projections on what you're going to do and what your break even points are. So that's another important term that if you're growing, especially if you have a location, but it's important to know what your break even points are. Like, break even is when you're just meeting your expenses, right? And sometimes the profit on each of your products are kind of eaten up into some of those costs. I hope that makes sense, because you have all these break even costs. Obviously, if you do the calculations correct, then it should equal out very, very similar. But that's also too, another piece I want to say is if you're starting out your business and you have to get a loan, let's say you have to borrow money, those kind of things, that is going to have to come out of things like profit, or you're going to have to incorporate that into your pricing somehow. Those are things that you're going to have to really look into and consider as you go through all these things. Okay, looks like we got a couple questions here. One in the chat from Heather. Good afternoon from Meridian. How do you find out all the information about competitive market, and do you like take in the surrounding counties since we're in small cities and towns? Also, is it smart to do small town festivals and such to get your name and product out there? Okay, twofold question. So yes, when it gets to the competitive market, what I do, I will go out and look at every bakery in town and I will categorize them, and I will actually look into them and be like, okay, this one's a little bit more luxury. This one's a little bit more kind of towards mass market. This is how much they're charging. This is the quality of their product. Finding what bakery or what product out there is something that's similar to what you're doing. And then that can give you a benchmark on where to kind of decide to go, right? From that point. And then from a small town festivals, yes, I talked about this yesterday as well. That's how I got my start, is in farmers markets in Provo here in Utah. And they're the greatest things. City festivals, farmers markets, all those kind of things, especially right in your hometown. And you have an opportunity. And also what I mentioned yesterday is those markets are usually very low price entry into being able to actually sell at those places. Like, that's huge, right? Because, you get into a storefront, you got to pay, $100,000, $50,000, $30,000, whatever it costs to, build out your place. And you don't do that first, right? You go to these local markets, pay, 20 to $100 for your booth, and start testing. Sell your products to people, see what they like, see what they don't like, fine tune it as you go, figure out what pricing works. Maybe you priced it too high, maybe you priced it too low, all those kind of things. So that's how I'd answer that question. Okay, looks like we got a few came in here into Q&A. So Christine, do you have an idea on what kind of percentage to pay a business if you are selling your items in it? A local bakery who sells only bread and you want to sell a seasonal cookie. Okay, so I think I understand this. So you're wanting to sell your products in another local bakery and you want to sell a cookie. There's two different ways you can do this, and hopefully I answer this correct. And if Christine, if I don't answer this right, please put in like a clarifying like question. But how I look at this is there's two different ways that you can do this. You can either sell the product to them wholesale and then they get to mark it up and then sell it, and then they're the ones that are essentially making most of the profit on it, right? Or you can give it to them and then they sell it more on consignment. I wouldn't necessarily do that because then it puts the burden on you. If they don't sell the product, then you're out the product, but you'll have to work that out with whoever you're going with. And that's also going to be a conversation with whoever you are selling in their store, right? Because they're going to have particular rules on or particular things that they're going to be like, okay, I want to buy your cookie, but I want to buy it from you for $1 because I'm going to turn around and sell it for $2. So you got to figure out what that's where wholesale pricing gets really tricky, because you have to also make sure that wholesale pricing is a win-win situation for you and whoever's selling that item. So there's some thoughts right there on that one. Okay, Brittany, I know you mentioned sponsors, but what about fundraisers? I often do a lot of silent auctions for schools in my area, but I don't know how to account for it in my pricing model. I only offer a certain size of cake or amount of cupcakes. Okay, so what I would suggest on this one for fundraisers, keep track of what the value of what you're giving is. Okay, so like if you do 100 cupcakes and let's say they're valued, like they would have bought them for, $3 a piece. So you're talking $300. So you're donating those to a fundraiser. They then get to use that to, raise funds for their particular event. But then you take that $300 and make sure you write that down, have it accounted for, so that in your accounting, when you're doing your taxes, it gets counted as contributions or donations from your company, because that's also tax deductible, right? So that's what I would do from a fundraiser standpoint, is just do that. Other than that, you don't really have to do much, but if you want to be able to have that as a tax write-off, I would suggest just accounting for the overall value of what they would have paid for if you've charged them full price. Okay, hopefully that answers that, Brittany. Okay, Monica, would you suggest to get a resale license in order to get a product at a discounted price? Okay, Monica, I'm trying to understand. Are you talking sales tax? You might be talking sales tax. In most places, you're probably going to have to get a resale license, and maybe this is talking about buying ingredients. That's what I would, when I first saw there, I would totally make sure that, and then this might be going in a different direction, but when you're buying ingredients, make sure that you do have like your tax certificate or resale license, because when you go buy ingredients from places, you don't want to have to pay taxes on it twice, right? Like when you go buy stuff from Sam's Club or Costco or whatever, or even Walmart or the grocery store, you can show that to them and they won't charge you tax on the goods that you're buying. So your flour, your sugar, all those kind of things, because you're going to turn around and sell it, and then there's going to be tax charged on top of that. So that's just to kind of save you a little bit of money up front and a little bit some headache there. So hopefully that answered that piece. Okay, I've got room for about probably one or two more questions. If anybody has a budding question that they're like, oh, should I ask? Should I not? Feel free to jump in and add it in there, because I think we got about 6 minutes left on the call. But probably one of the biggest things when it comes to pricing is just understanding that there are, literally thousands, millions, like probably thousands of businesses, right? Hundreds of thousands of businesses all over the world. And whether they're bakery businesses or whether they're a shirt business or whether they're a light business or like whatever it is, all of them are doing the exact same thing. They're all trying to grow a business. And there's no reason that, I know it's hard and it's hard to get through the brain sometimes, but we can pay ourselves fairly and we can help slowly make adjustments and grow together and kind of help the overall market to be able to charge appropriate prices, because this is a challenge for each of you on this call. So challenge for each of you would be, if oh, awesome. Thanks, Monica. You're awesome. I'm glad that I understood it correctly. Sometimes it's hard to understand across this. Sometimes maybe for a future webinar thing, I'll do it different where I actually bring people up. That might be better. Maybe I'll do that in the future. Anyway, but I just wanted to put it out there of, you are an artist, you are a business owner. And if you want to grow your business, my invitation to all of you is to start tracking your time. That's it. I know it may have seemed overwhelming and so much stuff to swallow, but first, number one, over the next week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, just track your time. Don't worry about anything else right now. It's too many things. That's like the next action. What's the next action in your business? And one of the things you can do is start tracking your time every single time you do a process in your business, every time, because it's going to be the data that you get that's going to be able to help you make these decisions in your business. And you're going to be able to have a clear picture on what that can look like. What are your business goals? Do you want to open up a storefront bakery someday? Do you want to have a private commercial kitchen? Do you want to teach classes? Do you want to have a food truck? Do you want to sell at farmers markets? How do you want to grow your business? Do you want to do content creation? What do you want to do? But the only way that you're going to be able to actually do that and help your business grow and provide, whether it's supplemental income or main income, whatever that is, then that is where we need to start. So, okay, let's see here. And one more thing popped up here. Let me read this really quick from Heather. So in question to Christine's question, how do you need to go in with somebody else's boutique store to carry your products, and they are wanting to supply the treats, cakes, whatever in her store? So I will be making and supplying all those. So how do you start that business to grow? Let's see, how do you? Okay, so you're wanting to sell in somebody else's place, carry your products. They're wanting to supply the treats. I think it's that one. It's going to depend so much on what that other person is. I would say just go start a conversation before you get too deep into it. Just go have a conversation. Say, hey, I'd like to sell my products in your store, and this is what my pricing looks like, or what are your goals? What are you trying to bring to your customers? Because also remember, it's not just them about selling your product, but it's about how is that a win-win situation for them? Because by you putting your cookies or cakes or anything in their business, and let's say you have, a good little following that's local, and you're teaming up with another little shop, you're going to be like, hey, I've got a lot of local followers and they're going to come and they could be potential customers for them. So you're also providing them something. So then that win-win situation comes back there as well. Okay. So in the last minute or two, I just want to say thank you so much for all of you that have attended on here. I hope that what I've shared today has been of value to you. I hope that you can look in and just look in your mind, like on the notes that you took of what you're going to take away from today's call. What are you going to do? What's the next thing you're going to do in your business? What's the next thing you're going to do to help it grow and help you build the business and the life and everything that you want in your life? Because you really can build it. And that seems a little bit cliche and like follow your dreams, but it's so true, you guys. You're the only one that's in your way, and your thoughts are the only thing that's holding you back from doing bold things in your business and actually growing it and showing up and being in the market. I'm so excited for all of you. And tomorrow, make sure you don't miss tomorrow. Tomorrow is all about time management, how to be more efficient with our time, how to focus better with our time, how to make processes in our business so that we can have less time in our business, and it's going to be amazing. Okay. Yes, Monica. I always ask myself, what am I doing today to get closer to my goal? Ask that to yourself every day. That's a huge, huge, huge thing. Well, you guys are awesome, and I hope you all have an amazing day. And we'll see you tomorrow. And as a reminder, if you want to sign up for a discovery call, it's just a click away. See ya.